Do you think universalism is a logical conclusion of Methodist theology?
Well, it certainly is a logical conclusion of John Wesley's theology, which of course Methodist theology is. We depend on his beliefs a lot for our foundational beliefs. But we in the United Methodist Church tend to focus a lot on the love of God. And therefore, universal salvation is sort of a natural outgrowth of that. If God really loves us, like even beyond what a loving parent would ever love his or her children, then I think it is a natural outgrowth. With John Wesley, he was in a period of transition really throughout his whole life. he never got to the point where he stopped growing and learning. Of course, none of us should. And so his early beliefs were really more Arminian, but did not include universalism. But he taught an awful lot about God's love, and that is of great significance. And like I say, that has influenced our theology. And so I think it is completely natural that we would, some of us at least, come to believe in universal salvation, because that's been pretty compatible with what we've been taught throughout our whole experience in the church and in seminaries and so on. According to scholars, Charles Wesley came to believe in universal salvation before John did. Actually, that created a division between John and Charles for a few years. They were quite young. It was like in 1740, so they would have been in their 30s. Charles apparently had come to believe in universal salvation, but John didn't agree with him. And of course, he had this close association with the Moravians, and they believed in universal salvation. Well, both John and Charles had this close association with the Moravians. But at that early stage, John disagreed with them. And he had, like I say, he had this major division for a few years between him and Charles over the issue of universal salvation. But then John slowly began to embrace it late in his life. On the Fall of Man was a sermon he preached, I think in 1782, when he would have been like 79 years old. And so it took him a long time. But his teachings were very compatible with the teaching of universal salvation all along throughout his whole ministry. And I don't know that if he ever outwardly, openly, clearly proclaimed that he believed in universal salvation. And so the best clue we have is his sermons, because he published his sermons, and there's I don't know how many books of sermons that he put out. And so the best clue we have is his sermons. While he may not have used the term universal salvation, what he was saying was clear, that he believed everybody would be saved. And said God can save the whole world just as easily as God can save one person. And that ultimately God would prevail. Albert Outler was considered perhaps the ultimate Wesley scholar during his life. I think he died in 1989. Anyway, he was a great scholar, and so he wrote a lot about John Wesley, and it was clear to him that Charles and John believed in universal salvation. And then a friend of mine, Jim Ellison, he wrote a book called John Wesley and Universalism, and that was his doctoral thesis. And he makes a really good case. He does a thorough study of John Wesley's life and his teachings, his sermons. Makes a really strong case for the belief that not only did Charles, but John Wesley came to believe in universal salvation. Well, Charles early and John later in life.